Hello, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Greetings from the depths of the Hampshire countryside in southern England. Delighted to be with you. We're going to have a very fascinating presentation today called Multi-Rooted, which will be one of the key themes of the Trend Book 2022 Plus that will be presented at the Voice event taking place at Vicenza in mid-September from the 12th to the 14th of September. The Voice event will be a fabulous new initiative by Vicenza Oro, which will combine a trade event and a summit with a host of interesting content. It will be an event open for the trade, for buyers, and it will be also an opportunity for people to learn about opportunities for trade ahead in this new world. And also educational opportunities too. There will be a predictions event organized by TRENDVISION on the 14th of September, which will be part of the ample offering of Voice. First, before I introduce you to the panelists, I'd just like to present a video by TRENDVISION. So please enjoy this video now. Great, well, thank you so much. I'm now going to introduce you to Paola De Luca, who is well known, I'm sure, to many of you, a very well known jewellery creative director and analyst, who will introduce this segment and also introduce our other panelists today, Akash, Das. Paola, welcome. How are you today? Oh, can you unmute, Paola? We cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, that's great. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you for being live, everybody. And thank you to all audience that is joining us at TRENDVISION Forecasting. And thank you, David and Akash, for being here.
Yeah, I'd just like to say at this juncture for all the viewers, please do submit questions because we are going to have a Q&A at the end. So please do use the chat function to submit your questions. So Paola, we're looking forward very much to this presentation of the multi-rooted theme today, which is one of the themes of the 2022 Trend Book that will be presented during the Voice event at Vicenza, running from the 12th to the 14th of September. Over to you, and we look forward also to welcoming today Akash Das, our other panelist and speaker.
Well, thank you, David. I think once again, I'm very excited. It's our fourth webinar this year. And in a way, we have to say thank you to the pandemic because, you know, this is really has created a platform and opportunity to really share TRENDVISION Observatory, which I co-founded with Vicenza Fair 10 years ago. And I am very proud to finally share it with our audience and followers and VORO fan. And I also like to share, you know, our team and specialist insights. And I'm very honored, and always I have a great pleasure to have Akash because he's a brilliant futurist and forecaster, which has joined us from India. I have to say that India is offering and has incredible, bright intellectual in future scenarios, and Akash is one of them. So today we will be touching based on multi-rooted, seeking for new values in jewelry, but I think the objective, and this is something that I really want to stress as TRENDVISION Forecasting and as a forecasting specialist, the strong connection between the market and society changes and how it manifests in market and ultimately in the luxury and jewelry industry. We cannot forget that these things are all interconnected. There is an osmosis and everything is borderless. We cannot assume that the market is disconnected. So this was before pandemic. We always, as TRENDVISION, as really focus on the aspect of consumer behavior. So I'd like now to really start, our webinar with Akash making an introduction on the social shifting, and then to see how this social shifting it's relevant for our jewelry industry and luxury industry, because it doesn't matter if we decide to be either leaders or followers in the market, either creator or copying. It doesn't matter, because there are companies that they decide to follow, but ultimately knowledge is power, and we really want to, with TRENDVISION activities, to empower our audience for present and future business strategy. So I'd like now to pass it over to Akash. Let me go here. And really...
And Paola, if I could just point out, Paola, just at that point there, the previous slide is a reference to the predictions event, which TRENDVISION will be hosting at Voice on the 14th of September. So please do track that on the internet. That will be a really interesting predictive event, looking at how trends will evolve.
Thank you, David. Yes, prediction is an event that I am curating for the fair, and is a forecasting event where we'll have the jewelry trend book live, and we will have 3 sessions. One will be emerging phenomenon, panorama of the jewelry industry, and the forecast of the upcoming seasons. We have the honor to have brilliant minds from all over the world, what we call the antennas, precognitive minds that they are able to foresee and have the perception of what's coming ahead. And I think will be a wonderful time for the industry to join and get inspired. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, David.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Paola, for having me here. Thank you very much, David, as well, for introducing us and giving us this platform. A warm welcome to all of you. A very good evening from India, and I hope that all of you guys are doing good and doing safe. I'm going to take you through a brief journey through one of the major directions that we have observed and we have considered to be one of the leading causes of change, one of the leading drivers of change as we move into 2021 and 2022. We're calling it multi-rooted, and multi-rooted as as a macro direction, as a macro trend, focuses on how we are going to embrace the fact that we are all coming from many different roots, as well as we move ahead, how that how what we embrace about our past is also going to change our future, how we are going to come together as a big macro global community. 3 of the major perspectives that we are going to be seeing as we move ahead into the future are diversity, divergence, and difference. So we have already started tracking that there is a huge amount of heterogeneity developing in the markets. There is a huge amount of heterogeneous perspectives developing, and we will only see that this diversity is going to increase, this divergence is going to increase. While we see that this divergence and diversity increases, we will also start observing that there is going to be an increasing level of acceptance, increasing level of tolerance to the fact that we are all very different yet come from similar roots. So in a way, the idea of multi-rooted is essentially about how we are going to start taking stock of where we come from, how we are going to start molding the heritages that we come from together as we evolve ahead into time, right? We are also looking at renewing our relationship with the differences and our grassroots. We will sow new meanings of diversity through hybridized ethnicities and cultural crossness. Definitely, one of the things that we are going to be seeing ahead is how our ethnicities and how our culture and our traditions are going to become a lot more hybridized. This is something that we are any which way witnessing even now, especially with the Generation Z coming into the picture. We have seen a huge amount of racial diversity. We have seen a huge amount of education diversity, and one thing that we constantly monitor about the Generation Z as well as for the late millennials is that diversity comes very natural and very organic to them because they have been they have basically existed in a time and space where there is and has always been multiple different perspectives of living, multiple different perspectives of reality. We have observed that this particular sentiment is growing, and that is essentially what is going to be the seed for multi-rooted. The vision for multi-rooted is essentially about how multi-global sentiments are going to grow, multi-global societies are going to grow. Now, we have, over the past years, have started looking at the concept of globalism as opposed to what we used to call globalism. It's just sort of like an evolution of the idea of globalism, which is global values, but local mindsets is some things that we have started observing a lot in the past. As we move ahead, we are going to be witnessing a sort of many different kinds of global sentiments coming in. So geographical boundaries are going to fade away, but we will have a lot of cultural perspectives that would start coming in together and start blending in together to form new realities of societies, new realities of mindsets, and new realities of people, right? So ultimately, the idea of multi-rooted as we evolve into newer years ahead of us, ahead of 2021 and 2022, is to start seeing that there is going to be a culturally diverse, global community that is going to start coming together, which is going to be an interesting way to see how everything comes together. This macro trend is going to be expressed through a lot of deepening of cultural sensitivities. In design, we would be seeing a lot of hybridized design languages, which means that this whole idea of Asia or Europe or Americas is going to start becoming blended together, and there is going to be a lot of cultural influences that we'll be seeing from multiple different domains of the world, and we would start seeing that these things are going to start becoming one as we move ahead into the future. Cross social experiences and the growth of new subcultures. We would also be seeing a lot of new subcultures coming up, right? Because we see that this pandemic has also created a hotbed for new cultural evolutions. We are interacting more with our families. We are interacting more with our roots. We have the time now to actually sit down and understand where we come from. We are actually getting time to breathe and understand where exactly we come from. This has created a lot of growing, interests in understanding what our grassroots are. It is going to lead to, the growth of new hybridized subcultures. What I'm going to be doing now is also I'm going to take you through some of the main elements that this particular trend is going to express. A few of the things that we will be seeing in, and this trend is going to be expressed in multiple domains in the world. So it's going to be like fashion, automobiles, product, communication, and all of these perspectives, all of these domains would start seeing the multi-rooted perspectives coming inside. One of the major perspectives that we will be seeing being expressed, a much, much more amplified way of expression is going to be gender fluidity. Gender fluidity is not new. We have started seeing an expression of gender blending and gender bending coming up alongside us right now as well. But as we move ahead, the gender fluidity is going to take charge of, many different kinds of gender expressions that we have not started seeing a lot. We will start seeing very specific, gender expressions related to queers, related to asexuals, related to many different kinds of gender non-binary that design has not yet fully understood or fully looked at. And that's going to be a very interesting time for design, because we have a lot of new opportunities coming up when it comes to gender. Understanding it, expanding it fully is going to be something that a lot of brands are going to be looking at. Non-binary forms are going to become a very interesting tactile representation of this particular macro trend, and we will be seeing many different kinds of non-binary forms in a spectrum, and that's going to be very, very interesting to actually see how it works out. Overall, we would be seeing a lot of fluid expressions. So expressions are going to become fluid. They are going to become very, very explorative. There isn't going to be a lot of boundaries or silos, and we'll touch upon that soon as well. It's going to be all about what you want to express, how does it justify your identity, and that's what it is going to be about.
Akash, could I just ask you at that point?
Yes.
Please, in terms of jewellery, then, are we likely to see in the coming years more, if you like, unisex jewellery?
Yes, we are definitely going to be seeing a lot of unisex jewelry, as well as we are going to be seeing a lot of blends in jewelry, which means that we will be probably seeing hard metal textures, for example, which are traditionally probably considered to be masculine, along with fluid, metal structures, or even we can see, thinner metals being paired up with heavier metals or thicker metals. So there is going to be an expression of fluidity, which means a lot of opposite polarities are going to start coming inside, which is in a way going to be an expression of the idea that people are going to start understanding design as a way of expressing themselves, and they themselves are now evolving to understand that gender is not a stationary thing, but it's a fluid thing, and it can evolve, and it can, a masculine can have feminine attributes, a feminine object can have masculine attributes, and how does the relationship evolve is what is going to happen in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one of the other very interesting, crucial things that we're going to be seeing ahead as we move into the future is what we are calling the neo-cultures. There is going to be, and we are sort of witnessing an emergence, I would say, very embryonic, newer subcultures and newer cultures coming up all around the world. A lot of that is, rooted in the travel mindset that, our millennials, parents, a lot of millennials used to have. So as millennials become parents, and, as Gen Alpha start coming in, as, a younger Gen Z start coming in, they're going to be introduced to very different kinds of cultures all around the world, and, because of that idea of being exposed to different kinds of cultures, we would start seeing a new kind of culture emanating, and those new kind of cultures would be, basically hybrid mindsets, hybrid sentiments, a lot of different kinds of mix match, copy pasted cultures coming together, because, they would want to express everything that they have seen. It's like they want to sort of, I would say, celebrate the whole idea of, global cultures, and that's how new cultures are going to start coming in as well. We would see new perspectives of grassroots, which is your, newer modern perspectives and versions of your heritage. We would also see a lot of fusion cultures ahead.
Now, I want to jump in for a sec,
yes.
Akash, because I want to talk just like a little parenthesis, because you are referring back very often to Gen Z or Gen Alpha, and those are, of course, naming and classification that marketers and forecasters are familiar with, but the audience may not be familiar. So if you can spend few moments in explaining what it is Gen Alpha and Gen Z. And I'd like to say that as TRENDVISION, we are not only working on demographic charts and psychographic charts in Trendbook 2022, which will be released in September and will be available digitally, and later will be presented for the first time. It's presented digitally in September and is going to be printed hard copy in January. But a following voice will be focusing on generations and demographic versus psychographic. I think this is a very important and crucial topic because translates into business segments and business opportunities and product segmentation. Could you kindly, Akash, just few moments about these two categories versus the millennial, and then later on we'll do a focus on generations. Thank you.
Yes, I'll do that. Yeah, thank you so much, Paola, for bringing that to my attention. So, when we are sort of designing, we also start taking care of the fact that who exactly it is buying. And a lot of times, as we move ahead into, eras, depending on different kinds of events, we start seeing different kinds of mindsets being evolved. So we kind of cluster them together depending upon when they are born. So millennials are generally the people who are born somewhere around, in the beginning, early stages of 1980s, going as far as the 1995. And right after them is the Generation Z, which is from 1995 coming closer to around 2001 and 2002. So there are slight distinctions in terms of these brackets. So, you would probably have like year here or a year there coming in. But, on an average, this is the scale. So we generally see, Generation Z to be a lot more influenced by the way, pre-millennials used to be. And Generation Z is also the most educated, most racially diverse population right now. So, all of these cultures that you're seeing right now will be expressed by them. The oldest Generation Z right now is 22 years old, 22, 23 years old. So they're just entering the workforce. And over the next 2 to 3 years, we would see a majority of the Generation Z entering the workforce. And with them having the spending power, they're going to start reevaluating a lot of things. They're going to start changing a lot of things in terms of how design should look like, how design should feel like. And what you're seeing here is sort of like a vision of how Generation Z is going to evolve the societal systems. After Generation Z, of course, we have Generation Alpha, which is people who are born after 2001, 2002, 2003, and they're very, very small right now. But, we are kind of observing how they are, how they are behaving also. But right now, our major focus is, of course, on the Generation Z and how those people are going to shift the societal and cultural systems.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, moving on, considering what I was speaking about, a while back, hybrid roots is also going to be something that we will be seeing a lot. And when I say hybrid roots, it means that it need not necessarily be, products or, experiences that are perfectly patched together. But like you see some of the examples here, it's basically a mix match of many different kinds of things coming together. It's sort of like, people are going to celebrate the idea of, not being perfect, right? And people are going to celebrate the idea of that, okay, I am not a perfect culture, but I am basically an amalgamation of assimilation of many different cultural ideas, many different cultural identities. And I'm okay with that, right? I am sort of like a being in constant evolution, right? So that is basically one of the core elements that we will be seeing, which is called hybrid roots, right? We will be seeing wood being paired up with fleece. We would probably see glass paired up with porcelain and woodcock. We will see a lot of different kinds of blend of materials coming into design. And that is sort of like an expression of different identities, an expression of different cultures, expression of different societies.
Now, this is I want to jump in again because it's very important for me to talk to our jewelry people and talk to our designers and everybody else. Now, this is the tricky part where I always want to make sure that we're talking about sentiment that are translated into material, and ultimately semiotic codes. And by semiotic codes, we mean visual element that translates into design and ultimately product. So how do you go from an abstract sentiment, a consumer behavior, a society change into the manifestation of a product and ultimately a jewelry? So this is something that for buyers, for designers, for makers, that's where the research and the vision is coming. So don't just go inside the fair and buy what you see at the moment, but buy what could happen, and it's coming, because in your factoring and research you can see something ahead of the game. Now, you don't want, not necessarily a company wants to be leader in the business, not necessarily they want to be ahead of the game. They might decide to be following, it doesn't matter. But knowing what's coming, it makes you see things from a different perspective. Okay? So let's move, Akash. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula. Thank you. Right, and this is something that we were speaking about in the beginning, which is, the idea of multi-globalism. And, one of the things that we are noticing, especially in United States and in Europe, and this is a research that, I've put in from the US population, which talks about, how different races and ethnicities has a positive, negative, or neutral impact on the country's culture, and what different people have to say about it. And you would see that 64% on an average, 64% of all adults who are in the United States right now have said that they feel that a multiplicity of racial ethnicities, multiplicity of diversity of thought process is actually positive impact for the growth of their society, growth of their economy, which basically means that there is a powerful shift coming in terms of the mindsets, even though we see that there is this, Black Lives Matter movement coming in.
Hello?
Akash, you've frozen for a moment. Are you there, Akash?
I don't know if he's there. Maybe he might jump in or off. But again, sorry guys for technical. Technology.
Paola, while we wait for Akash to come back, I'm sure he will come back.
Styling, how it will come together and manifest
It's
in
coming
design.
back.
Yeah.
Akash, sorry, actually you were out for a few moments because I think your internet was, crashed.
Right. Okay.
So we were talking about, basically introducing the topic. If you can kindly, very quickly, go back to the point. Thank you.
Oh my God. I don't know when I stopped. Till what was
okay.
You just made the point, Akash, that 64% of all adults saw multi-globalism as positive.
Right. So basically, just to give you like a backtrack, I was talking about how, while there is a lot of, intolerance that we can see, even through something like Black Lives Matter, one of the things that this particular survey and research showcases is that positive impact is something that, people are looking forward for, right? So this is something which showcases that right now, I hope I'm audible. Is my voice audible? Is it fine?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. This showcases that people are ready for that change. People are ready for this acceptance, and people feel that this is actually a positive change. What you see in the image is basically showcasing how it will manifest in design, how we're going to be seeing many different roots, many different cultures coming together.
Akash, given the importance of the Black Lives Matter, do you sense that Black-inspired design inspirations will come increasingly to the fore in jewellery in the next few years?
Absolutely, David, because we have already started seeing that there is huge manifestation of this trend from the standpoint of African history, and from going back to the historic elements of the struggle that this particular ethnicity has gone through over the years. And we are only going to see that grow. And one of the things, and I think what is going to be happening is that it's definitely going to be, the revolution is going to be spearheaded by this particular ethnicities. And I think the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, has amplified this particular trend ahead, because what it did is that it allowed people to take stock of the fact that there is still a lot of, pervasive intolerance out in the society. And one of the things that design does or creativity does is it is going to rebel against it, and it is going to, showcase. I hope I'm audible. It is
You
going
are.
to showcase. It is going to showcase its expression in a lot more, visual. And as Paola said, the semiotics of this particular expression is going to be stronger, right? So definitely, David, it is going to definitely allow for stronger reach, and stronger voice of the communities that have been oppressed. And as I was talking about it earlier, we will see a lot of focus on the historic aspects, and those historic aspects are going to be drawn into the design as well.
Okay, thank you.
One of the other core elements that we are going to be seeing, and this is also a very big a macro direction that we are observing, and we are calling it silo-less. And silo-less basically talks about the breaking down of all kinds of boundaries, right? And as we move ahead, right, this is going to be obviously from a cultural and a societal standpoint, but we will be seeing this particular trend being observed on all sorts of spaces like work culture and relationships and all of that as well. From a cultural and social standpoint, siloless is going to be expressed through, the non, binary. It is going to be also expressed through the fact that, we will accept and we will see many different kinds of identities coming up in our society. We are going to be seeing a lot of, I would say gender roles and gender stereotypes and gender norms are going to be broken. And also a lot of cultural, traditional, it could be even patriarchal thought processes are going to be broken. So it is going to become a very boundaryless, a very siloless future in through the multi-rooted as a macro direction. Just to quickly take you through some of the major consumer mindsets that we are going to be seeing. Now, this is important again, because we have to kind of analyze what kind of things people would want to buy in the future. And one of the things that we have started observing a lot that, the future is going to have is there is going to be a very multicultural mindset that the consumer is going to have. They will definitely have a very local mindset as well. We are already witnessing that, in our current times. We will be seeing a lot of free-spiritedness. We will be seeing a lot of wanderlust, which is owing to the fact that, yes, there has been a lot of alternate travels. Is my voice clear? Because I hope.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Because I saw my
Thank you,
signal was
Akash.
dropping. Right. Also, we are going to be witnessing a lot of inclusivity and boundarylessness, right? The images kind of showcase a sort of a mood in which the consumer is going to be working with. It is going to be increasingly, embracing, accepting, as well as, celebrating different cultures, celebrating free-spiritedness, celebrating boldness, celebrating any kind of, norm-breaking attitude there is.
Okay.
Again, when we speak about attitudes, there is going to be a lot of curiosity that the consumer is going to have ahead from a multi-rooted standpoint. We will be, again, coming back to what we were talking about as Generation Z. Generation Z is also considered to be one of the most curious demographic that we have seen so far. They are curious to explore many different things. They are not someone who are, I wouldn't say that they're not careful. They are pragmatic beings, but at the same time, they're very carefree about, how they want to express themselves. They don't get overtly judgmental about themselves or overtly judgmental about the world. They believe in breaking barriers. So the consumers are going to be very empathetic. They're going to be very, very disruptive, as well as they will try to embrace multiple different identities. So from a design standpoint, I would say one of the key takeaways from this is that how do you ensure that you are providing people designs that have multiple different experiential factors? It's not just going to be one thing or the other thing, but how do you sort of hybridize it? How do you give them many different things together, or maybe opposite things together, or maybe, you know, slightly different variants of what they've seen together? Coming back to my last, you know, perspective from the consumer, what kind of lifestyles it is that we are going to be seeing. One of the lifestyles that multi-rooted is going to charge up is called alt travel or alternate travel. We are seeing the seeds. I mean, before the pandemic, because now we're in lockdown, but we've seen a lot of people who are looking for experiential travel. You know, it could be solo travel, it could be travel that is, you know, not with, you know, not generally how, you know, tourism is. You know, it's travel to sort of explore different cultures, actually embed themselves and immerse themselves in those cultures. So there is a value that was coming up in authenticity, okay, or authentic immersion into the travel. And, you know, that is something that is going to definitely move the lifestyle forward. And the whole idea of this lifestyle means that, you know, consumers are going to become a lot more interested in what is going around the world, and they're going to try to bring that in their own life experiences, in their own homes, in their own jewelries, in their own garments, in their own wardrobes. Cultural exploration is going to be a very important thing for these guys, and they're going to have it embedded in their lifestyles, be it through food and drink, be it through jewelry, be it through garments. There is going to be a cultural exploration perspective that they're going to be looking at. Multi-lifing speaks about, you know, a lifestyle which allows people to sort of look at many different lives that they can lead. You know, these consumers are going to want to experience many different professions. These consumers are going to be hi, David, am I there?
Yes,
Yeah?
we hear you.
Yes, you are, and you have to be fast because time is running out.
I'm done. Yes, I'm done. Yeah, so multi-lifing basically speaks out. This is the last point. You know, this basically talks about how consumers are going to be appreciating the multi in their life. You know, so these guys are going to be definitely looking at many different perspectives that they want to, you know, explore, right? And as a designer, be it jewelry, be it garment, be it, you know, experience, we have to ensure that they are able to, you know, they're able to sort of experience that multiplicity. Yeah, that's all from my side for today.
Great. Thanks so much, Akash. Really appreciate that. So we'll move swiftly ahead to Paola's presentation. Just to remind everybody, please do submit questions on the chat function so we can pick them up for the Q&A following the next presentation and discussion. Paola.
So thank you, David. Actually, you know, it's like my segment includes Akash because I think it's important that when as TRENDVISION, we have an overall way of approaching business and is research and forecasting from its strategic perspective. So you cannot talk about jewelry unless you don't really express the overall context, the social cultural environment, and the cultural shifting that we are facing now. Even, you know, even before pandemic, this was like very important. Now, of course, I mean, like all the phenomenon and changes that, you know, Akash is actually touched, they were already there. I mean, when we are talking about, you know, racial diversity, we are talking about educational diversity and multi-ethnicity. Of course, for the United States is more, let's call it normal, is part of the country. It's becoming more diverse, also Europe and other parts. What does it mean? It means that the way we are, cultural changes and also the way we buy jewelry and also another important thing, many jewelry silhouettes and even clothing, apparel, luxury, they get inspiration from local culture. When we have ear cuffs, for instance, they come from Indian bridal jewelry. There are many silhouettes that they're being reinterpreted and changed by contemporary young designers that they have like tribal roots, and they're completely translated into futuristic new silhouettes. So I think that this is a very important, aspect to have really an overall vision of what's coming and the reason. And when we touch on, generation segments, we can see how this is applied. So the reason why we talk about this is because it's not just about the design and product itself, but the overall context that includes the selling experience, the communication, and by being experiential buyers or whatever, it is something that has to happen in a phygital context, meaning online and offline. And knowing what's around and what are the values of consumers is relevant, because when we are buying or creating products, everything, the concept of the storytelling and the narration has to be coherent, because it's part of the experiential feeling and journey of the consumer. So the main three categories that, of course, we want to touch base, and they're, kind of the manifestation of this particular world, which is actually, it's extremely siloless, because everything is siloless in terms of context, are collectibles, magnificent crafts, and patterns. So let's go very fast on these elements. So as you can see, charms, amulets, rough gems, unexpected combination, it's something then we have seen it, we keep seeing it. But how is it evolving? Why charms are coming in and out? What type of charms? How are the combination? Now, what I call the styling or the self-expression or the aesthetic codes of people nowadays, they're taking inspiration from local cultures from all over the world. And there is what, Akash is mentioning as hybridization of different culture. They blend in and morph into something completely new that sometimes it doesn't have a clear origin. So from like jewelry to styling, and styling, we can see it in an extreme way in couture fashion or in consumer magazines. But at the same time, you can see it in underground culture. And what are underground culture when we mention it? It is young youth cultures, but not only culture. They are, they are not in the scene immediately, but in the medium term, they are like strongly impacting the market, because when underground culture are strong, they are impacting celebrity culture, music industry. All the celebrities, they get inspiration, and they get all the info, basically they get the source of inspiration from the subculture, and it becomes mainstream culture. So amulets, upcycled and jewelry, for instance, or upcycled product in general is very important, which is not to confuse with recycling, but actually using element and deconstructing pre-existing jewelry or fashion or object and recomposing and redesigning with these components. This is very strong, is what Akash was talking about. We are going to expect unusual combination of materials, jewelry, old pieces in combination with new pieces, vintage pieces that are being acquired and purchased by designers, that they're breaking it and remaking something, but they're not melting the metal. They're actually taking exactly the same element, they are rebuilding it, which it gives it something completely new, a wonderful feeling of heritage, but at the same time with an artistic perspective of contemporary time. And again,
Paola, could I ask you? Paola,
yeah,
could I ask you?
Of course.
Do you foresee that there'll be an increase in recycling across the board in jewellery? I mean, will people sometimes, for example, take a vintage piece of jewellery and then go along to their bespoke jeweller on the high street and ask for a more contemporary design and a refashioning of that piece, thinking perhaps that it will have less impact on the environment if they do that?
Well, I think both. Yes, David. My answer is yes, they will recycle, meaning they will melt their old pieces and recuperate the gemstones and maybe redesign it. But at the same time, upcycling, meaning, taking apart your necklace and remaking it in a different way, or actually using the same bezel as it is with the original shape and reinterpreting both ways. I think there is a very important, this kind of activity can happen also with manufacturers. And it's something that I strongly actually suggest to do. I mean, my original, profession was designing and actually was curating collections for large corporation. I would always go back to the archive in terms of models and pieces manufactured. They have huge stocks that should be reused, reinvented, including modeling, recreating from scratch. There's no point nowadays, because actually the treasure of our history and what was done can be reused and revamped completely and reinterpreted. So yes, David, I mean, people will go back to the jeweler. So there is kind of also a renaissance of craftsmanship. And we are going in a second where we're going to talk about magnificent crafts. But talking about, charms and really, let's call it emoji of, precious, precious emoji or emoji to wear, charms and amulets become kind of, conversation. It will be like an emoji that we are using on our chats. We are chatting with element, with layers, and these emoji, they are either like original pieces collected, or they are completely redesigned. They usually macro pieces. They are not micro. I mean, definitely dimension. They are becoming more. There is also a very strong maximalism, huge pieces, almost tribal taste, or small pieces that can be layered and can make a statement. But also in this world of kind of tribal, neo-tribal, like there is and also ethnicity and diversity, gold, brush gold, archeo gold, ancient gold, that could be even sometime a 24 karat coming from different culture. That could be from, Africa, or the Middle East, or, India. Is definitely, this kind of precious gold, rich color, brushed, handmade feeling, very strong, and again, this styling, very inspiring, especially, and body jewelry also very popular. It's kind of evolving the world of tattoo and body decor. Magnificent crafts. It is like really going to the point that you were making, David, and the questions. Cultural sensitivity, local, colorful jewelry, but also like recuperating craftsmanship, very intricate, excellent craftsmanship from all over the world. So really recuperating, ancient craft that could be enameling, engraving, filigree, everything, but can be reinterpreted. So from Chinese heritage to European, Indian, and you name it. But, modern, and this combination of almost museum quality and mixing it with contemporary element. And when actually Akash was talking about gender fluid, but gender fluid doesn't exclude the fact that, in the gender fluidity, men can also use, let's say, female inspired jewelry and vice versa, because it's more about communicating through jewelry rather than representing, it's more really expressing a feeling, a mood, a cultural perspective than a sexual, identity only. And again, example of, mixing and matching material, which is not absolutely new. I mean, it's something that we have seen from like the late 1800 or the early 1900. Art Nouveau is giving great example, but there are now is pushed to the next level where at times technology is bringing colored metal, a new alloy, a new, so technology is bringing a new way of mixing and matching materials. Patterns, now going to this thing of tribal and exotic decor with geometric edges, is kind of really bringing this, is taking the deco vibe and the deco, trend, which has been very strong for almost 2 decades, I would say. It's like the early 20s of the 3rd millennium. They're kind of echoing the last century, and now it's moving to the next level, and is becoming more futuristic, more modern. So there is kind of the first decade of the 1st millennium deco inspired. Now we are getting into the end of the 2nd decade, and is evolving. And the exhibition of the Met, which is opening in November, Fashion in Time, is really giving this example of before and after, then and now, in fashion, but I would say also in jewelry. Enameling color, an inlay of gemstones, it's something very, very powerful. And color, like we saw with Jennifer Ibner last time, it is something very strong, not only for this category, but for contemporary jewelry, for more minimalistic jewelry. Colored metal that was already present 10 years ago now is becoming mainstream. So that one was a niche. That's why I say to everybody, watch out on the underground culture and watch out for niche jewelry or clothing or fashions, because it seems it's niche, but if you keep looking at it, it's evolving into mainstream. So it's good to be a leader and to keep an eye and monitor trends, because they go to the next level. It's like the stock market. If you can spot a trend ahead of time, you can make money just being there and watching. So colored metal, there was for only couture jewelry designers, titanium blue color, like the Stephen Webster or the Nia Dani or the Lydia Cortei or the Giovanni Ferraris. Now is mainstream. So they are affordable jewelry, and not everybody, all the manufacturers are doing it well. So it's very important to do your research and make sure you are delivering on the spot. Enameling and geometric, you can see clean, minimalistic silhouettes with wonderful geometric patterns that they're echoing deco, but also at times the 60s. So it's kind of, there is not really a clear time. It's really shifting from eras. It's like time, space, travelers. And again, as you can see here, there are, designers from, Silvia Furmanovic, that they're presenting marquetry, but also inlay, gemstone, and so on. And you see this wonderful pattern combination, which at times is inspired by batik, which also batik, African batik, they were also inspired deco. Now they're getting it to the next level. And with this, I end my very brief, let's say, panorama on jewelry manifestation of what, Akash introduced in terms of social shifting. I think this is really what I love, our audience to grasp, to really understand the importance and the richness of this knowledge that you can apply not just in jewelry, but in your campaign, in the storytelling, in communicating on socials, and therefore digital marketing. Really, the storytelling there has to be coherent and understanding to whom we are communicating, not only product, but also the story itself and the values that we are communicating to each generation, demographic and psychographic.
Okay,
I
thank you.
hand it back to you, David. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Paola. That was really fascinating. Let's have just a brief discussion among the three of us before we move to the Q&A. In the meantime, everybody, please do submit your questions on the chat function, and we'll get to those straight after this. Paola, one of the aspects of your presentation, which I thought was interesting, I'd be interested in your elaboration of, is this, if you like, it seems like an obsession with color seems to be evolving. That's actually a terminology used by the jewellery historian Vivienne Becker. There seems to be a widespread feeling that colour, a profusion of colour is going to be widespread across all kinds of jewellery design themes going forward. Why is that? I mean, is this linked very much to the lockdown and people that they want to return to a feeling of joyfulness, and this is one expression of that after, as a consequence of the pandemic?
Well, that's a good question, and I understand that you, being a journalist, you want the scoop on is it about the pandemic or not. The truth of the matter is it can be a combination, but the truth is the merging of color has been happening for like at least a decade, because the growth of color gemstones that in the past they were not as popular versus diamonds. Diamonds were like in the last decade, because I am a specialist monitoring trends, and of course I can say that bridal jewelry and engagement rings have since already a decade are becoming popular, also color gemstones, also because the royals exchanged a sapphire versus a diamonds, but not only. So I would say the color gemstones have become popular in the last decades very strongly worldwide. We have seen a growth of color metal, in particular, of course, different alloy, with the preference of certain color being the blue, as you know, blue being a popular color in terms of blue metal. But also, we have seen brown metals. I'm not talking about just the regular color being white, yellow, and rose gold. I'm talking about, the new alloy and the PVD and all this stuff. But definitely, if I have to conclude to your question, I'm sure the pandemic has brought kind of the need of using more color as a reaction of, kind of maybe a difficult, dark time. But let's not forget the neon colors that have been strong. They have, in terms of subculture, they've been there already for like the last year.
Okay, thank you. Let me just ask both panelists one more question before we go into the Q&A. And again, I see there's a question from Alison Morris, which I'll get to in a minute there. Please do keep those questions coming. One last question before that. The gold price has rocketed through the period of lockdown, and in July hit an all-time high. Silver prices also rose, but nowhere near as much as gold. So a lot of the exporters in jewellery and manufacturers that I've been speaking to in countries like India and Thailand have been seeing great opportunities for exports of silver jewellery in the coming months and years. And I'm just wondering how that can translate to colour. So are we going to see very innovative designs combining silver with colour gemstones? For example, I don't know, silver with aquamarine, unusual combination of materials with silver, embracing colour. Akash, what's your thought on this? And then Paola, then we'll go to questions.
Yes, I mean, I agree, because there is going to be, I would say, when it comes to metal, again, I wouldn't be the industry expert to be speaking about this definitely, but as much as I've seen the demographic shift, and speaking purely from a consumer attitude standpoint, I see that there is a huge upswing in exploring unusual combinations, exploring combinations that were not considered to be traditionally, I would say, accepted. So I think there is going to be a lot more metal X, different kinds of color, as well as artificial colors or enameling coming up on top of metals. So yes, there is definitely going to be that. And I also feel like there is going to be, especially from the context of how there is, evolution going on in terms of culture and society, we would definitely see a lot more, metallic structures and textures coming up that will have colors that we have not seen before as well. Even if it is just superficial, but it is going to be tried. I think there is going to be a lot of focus on experimentation as we move ahead. So yeah, I mean, let's see. I think it's all about taking a little bit of risks and, you know, giving it a shot, I feel.
Thank you. And Paola, brief comments on that, and then we'll go straight into questions.
Well, my point is silver and gemstones, to me, they've been around for a long time already. It's nothing new. I definitely believe, like every time we had the economic crisis and the gold went up, definitely alternative material. I think that nowadays there is also copper, which is very strong, and bronze. So there are new metals that have been used. Silver, yes, for sure. I think is a classic. But I also feel that more than ever is going to be like alternative material, unexpected material, also material that they have an organic base in combination with artificial base. They are being treated with new technology in combination with precious metal accents, meaning that you can find something that is, once again, organic base, treated in new ways with some accents of precious metals that could be gold, that could be platinum, in combination with gemstones that sometimes have been discarded, like certain diamonds that were not used in the past because it was only about VVS and whatever. Now everything that is being apparently like discarded, or now it's being used, but in a wonderful way, because like Akash was mentioning, it's not about perfection, but it's about beautiful and diversity.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to the Q&A, we have a question from Alison Morris. How do you foresee Black Lives Matter manifesting itself in jewellery design apart from an African history angle? So who would like to jump in on that one?
I'd like to respond to this because, of course, I am very close to Black Lives Matters, and we are all very close. I think that there are incredible designers, and one of the projects that is under that I'm cooking and working on, it is Disrupted Minds, and also talking about emerging design movement related to subcultures, and this is one of the topic. But I think that it is about Black Lives Matters, and it is also as equal as we have to say as lives matter in general. So I would say that Black designers from all over the world, and also in particular in Africa, there's going to be more celebration of African designers, and because there are incredible movements that they are raising from emerging culture. They're going to be more in demand versus, let's call it, the established and mature economies. As well, independent or indie companies, including independent designer, Black and or from other cultures, they will basically express their activism in creativity. So there is a strong wave of activism nowadays. So Black Lives Matters is expressing already in activism, either by Black culture or by Black culture supporter. The fact that we are doing it right now, we are Black culture supporter, but at the same time, it is also about Indian supporters, Middle Eastern supporters, and so on.
Just to interject to that point, we have a comment from Ash Alibai, who's a well-known London-based fashion editor, who says, in relation to the question of the Black Lives movement manifesting itself in jewelry design, I see it more as a celebration of Black heritage, but also looking at championing young Black designers and artists and so on. This is something that I am seeing in the fashion industry, and I think this would be something that we will start seeing in all of the creative industries, including jewellery. I've got a question from Alberto Milani. With regard here, he's asking about what effect the pandemic may have on demand and tastes for lab-grown diamonds. Akash, do you have any view on this one?
Yeah, of course. So
go ahead.
One of the things that the pandemic has done is it has allowed people to become a lot more curious about alternative lifestyles and alternative perspectives. So I do feel like there is going to be an increase, I would say, thought processes, increase perspectives towards, different kinds of alternate materials. Some of these alternate materials, which are considered to be more ethical or more sustainable, is also something that, people will kind of look into. That being said, the original market for diamonds, will not completely diminish, which means that, after we, once the pandemic is over, we would be seeing that most of the people are going to try to reconnect back to, their normalcies, and one of the things that will happen when people will try to reconnect back to their normalcies is that they're going to try to do things that allow them to understand who they were before the pandemic. So yes, so lab grown diamonds is something that, people in general will slowly start, looking into, as part of the whole sustainability agenda, as part of the whole alternate lifestyle agenda. And that is something that, more and more younger people are also going to be taking charge of. But traditionally, diamonds, traditionally the emotions and the moods evoked by diamonds, that is also going to persist. Specifically short term, which is, after the pandemic, after the lockdown gets better, and after we have vaccinations and, things come back to normal, we will possibly see a rise in the demand of diamonds as well, because, like we are seeing the rise of demand in many prospective industries, creative industries like fashion and, lifestyle all around the world. This is what I feel based on what I am observing right now.
I'd like also to add, if you don't mind, David, is the fact that I think that, you see, there is a perception that only lab-grown diamonds are ethical versus natural diamonds. And I think it's the responsibility of the diamond industry to educate Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and start having the language and the semantic online, which is not only corporate, to speak and communicate what's behind natural diamonds lifestyle, but also what's around the mining lifestyle, what's around, how natural mining companies are helping communities and how ethical they are to the environment. That's very important, because we are insider of this in this business,
I
and
agree.
we know what's happening. And there is this kind of conflict, which is completely nonsense, between lab grown and natural, which actually they can live together very well. The lab grown, they are not more ethical than natural diamonds. I think the natural diamonds are helping many communities in India and in South Africa and in Yakutia and in many other parts of the world. But they have to start communicating, and this is, we did a project together, David, what is the future of diamonds. And I really hope that, the responsible council, so together with the diamond, with all the organization, we listen to what we're trying to communicate. We need to talk to the young generation with their language and educate them on natural diamonds.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks so much for that, Paola. There's a question from Gad Gertel, further to David's question about recycling jewellery. How will the very high prices of the precious metals affect designers' creativity? I mean, the gold price is so high now that it's presumably out of reach of many young designers coming up. And also, are we going to see more sort of lightweight designs going forward? Part of the reason for this surge in gold prices has been as a kind of a safe haven impact against the uncertainty of this crazy new world we're living through under pandemic. Akash, what are your thoughts on this?
What I feel is that it kind of converges very well with the fact that there is going to be an immediate sort of economic compression, which means that immediately after the pandemic, people are going to be a lot more careful about what they are going to invest into, which is we are going to be seeing a lot more cleaner lines, cleaner shapes coming in. And as you said, we will probably be seeing a lot of alternative, metals as well, which can provide the aesthetic sense or aesthetic value of gold or silver or any of the heavier metals or any of the more expensive metals out there. But the longer term effects are going to, of course, will remain to be seen. How quickly the economy will come back, how quickly people are going to start trusting the economy and trusting their finances. And over a period of time, we might see that people would start investing into the precious metals all over again. But this is definitely a great opportunity for designers to also start looking at, how do you, I hope my audio is fine.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Right. This is also a great opportunity for designers to actually look at, alternative materials or alternate metals and sort of bring it into their portfolio and bring it into their product assortment, and to see what and how the consumers respond to it.
Paola, briefly, any thoughts on this one, or we should go on to the next question?
Well, I think we answered. I think that, we said that there is like organic base and artificial material in combination as an alternative to gold. At the same time, also combination of, let's say semi-precious material in combination with gold. One important aspect is that the pandemic, and this is an important point of what the pandemic really raised, is like the priority in life. And the priority in life being, jewelry need to really, as a category, luxury category, needs to be repositioned for young generation, but also for like the Gen X's like me, which they've been actually the biggest buyer segment online during the pandemic. It's about either accessorizing and styling yourself to express your own vision and your own personality, and or investing in jewelry with estate pieces, auction pieces, and one of a kind. So there is, I would talk about like more categories. It's not just about how metal is applied. I mean, this is kind of a last century or pre-pandemic vision. It's about who's our target, and our target is going to express themselves through type of jewelry. They could be precious, non-precious, or semi-precious, or demi-jewelry. We're going to see a lot of plastic, or we're going to see a lot of, also jewelry, believe it or not. And people is willing to spend in beautiful, let's say, jewelry, either precious or non-precious, semi-precious. They're going to spend money if design is reflecting their emotion. This is something that I would talk about. Now, I can see aluminum in combination with gold and diamonds. I can see aluminum in combination with sterling silver and diamond. So I would be careful in just deciding gold only, sterling only, or brass only, because it's kind of an old perspective in life. Consumers nowadays are buying what looks great. And if you go online, there are brands that are on Instagram that they are not at show. They never showed at any show that we know. Could be Vicenza, could be Hong Kong, could be Haute Couture. And just being online and being influencer and knowing exactly what consumer want, they are already phenomenon online. Most of the time, these people, they just went they did Paris Fashion Week or the Milano Salone del Mobile. So the point is, we are focusing on metal versus we should focus on consumer and what they like. And at the end, they spend $3,000 or $5,000 on a bag, and they don't care if a bracelet is made out of plastic but looks great and has diamonds, and they cost maybe 1,500 euros or dollars or whatever. So I think we have to shift the perspective and become more post-pandemic, neo-normal vision versus talking about grams of gold and grams of sterling silver.
Okay, it's an interesting perspective. Question from Aparna Gujral, asking what part sustainability will play in jewellery design creations in the years ahead. Presumably this is increasingly important, is it not? There's an increasing demand to fully understand the supply chain from mine to finger. Akash, what are your thoughts on how sustainability will, what impact it will have in terms of design going forward?
Again, like a few things that we have already touched upon. I think, Paula has also mentioned that, there is necessity that I mean, all over, it's not just in jewelry, but I feel like there is a lot of requirement of awareness as to what is sustainable and what is not sustainable, because in itself it's like a broad space. Like Paula has mentioned that the lab grown and the organic and the natural diamonds can actually coexist. A lot is also dependent upon the practices and also the fair wages and all of those aspects that are associated with sustainability. Is that are we paying the workers enough? Is there the right working conditions? Is it something that we are it's not just about the material, it is also about how the material is cultivated, how you are getting those resources. So it's actually a lot more bigger a perspective when we talk about sustainability, and I feel like a lot of people end up focusing on the tactile matters a lot, a tangible matters a lot, but I feel like it is gonna be, when it comes to the future of sustainability in the jewelry, it is going to become a lot about the transparency in the supply chain. It is going to become a lot about systemic development, so that we do not end up wasting a lot of resources and materials. We might also try to ensure that there is a lot more localized way of business creation. So these are some of the perspectives I feel that sustainability is going to be touched upon in jewelry, as well as in many other sectors. Not just about the material itself, but the system behind it, the people behind it, and also in a way standing up for the crafts. Standing up for the roots, standing up for the heritage, which basically molds the material, molds the raw material into something unique. I think those are aspects of sustainability that we will be touching upon ahead.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go to one last question because we're quite over time, but we'll take one last question, which has come in from Bernadette Yodia. She says that you mentioned that we should all pay attention to the independent brands in the future. Does that mean that big jewelry companies will have to compete increasingly with smaller brands or independent designers? Are we going to have big companies swallowing up smaller companies? Big consolidation phase as well. Paola.
This is a very good comment, and is a very good topic. Thank you, Bernadette, because it's something that everybody has to watch. The big company will need to ally with the small guys, which are like the big guys in this particular case, meaning that the big companies need idea, need experiential, product and selling and retailing. They need ideas, and industrialize and diluted content is no longer. This is the age of content curation, content creators, and we have seen online the manifestation of independent people or individuals that become huge influencers, and they can drive hundreds of followers that translate into markets, versus like when we talk about the large corporation that they have huge budgets, but they really waste their money in no content. So I would say that the big companies, like in fashion already started, they have to hire the small guys and create niche collection, handle with distribution. This is the best alliance. They should not take advantage of the small creative, but be fair and ethical and give space to creativity that they manage, but definitely consumer want authenticity and beautiful jewelry and or any product, not just jewelry, and they want to live the real experience. So independent and real emotion will be the best sellers.
Great. Akash, do you want to add anything or not onto that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what Paula has added as well. I mean, Paula has mentioned, but I would say, I think, as you also mentioned, David, yes, there is going to be probably a lot of big companies taking in the smaller companies and their way of working, because smaller companies are leaner and more agile. But at the same time, I feel like, there is a lot to learn from each other. So I think there is going to be a rise in collaboration is what I would definitely see, more than, somebody swallowing someone up. I think what is
Yeah.
definitely going to be going ahead is that there is going to be a lot of collaboration, and I think that's going to be a fun time to be in, and it's going to be, because we can learn a lot from the systems that big companies have, and we can learn a lot from the agility and leanness that independent brands and smaller brands have. So they're definitely going to be teaching each other a lot of things, risk taking coming from the smaller and independent firms, versus, and at the same time a lot of market dynamics, understanding of the market vision coming from the bigger companies. So that collaboration is going to be really interesting to see.
Sono d'accordo. Agree with you, Akash. Thank you. I agree. I think it's a good point what you said. Is collaborating, not swallowing up, but collaborating. I agree.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting point from Brigitte Le Bouillère, who says the issue in the past has been that larger companies have copied independent designers with no compensation for copyright breach. So that's a very interesting point made there.
I agree with her. I think it's a great point. It's always happened, and it maybe will still happen. But the good thing is that at least today, you can be the author, and being online, and gives you the opportunity to really say. I mean, we can see online that people rather buy from like the designer rather than someone that is copying it. So I would actually, I think that the web made the world more democratic in this aspect, honestly.
Absolutely.
All right.
I was about
Thank you so much. Paola, can I just ask you, is there another webinar coming up from TRENDVISION between now and Voice, or is this the last in series?
Thank you very much for mentioning and for asking this, David. We will basically no. The answer is no. We are going to be live at Voice with prediction on on September 14th, and then and they will be actually presenting Trendbook 2022 that we are extremely proud and very excited, together with Akash and all other forecasters and contributors. And then from October, the first Monday in October, we will start the new series, which actually will be about generations in confronting generations. So that will be the first one. The only thing that I will be actually, as Paola De Luca, will be launching Disruptive Minds, starting in September 3rd on Instagram Live. So guys, you can follow me, Paola De Luca, the Futurist, on Instagram Live, and we will keep you warm for TRENDVISION and all other activities. So thank you, David, for this opportunity, for sharing this information.
Okay, great. Well, I'd just like to thank the two panelists for joining us today and giving really wide-ranging and comprehensive overview of one of the key trends for jewelry design to 2022 and beyond, multi-rooted, talking about how the increasing diversity of the population is going to impinge directly on jewelry design in the future. So I'd like to invite everybody to go to Voice, which will be the next edition in Vicenza between the 12th and the 14th of September. It will be a trade show and a summit all in one. It will combine the digital experience with physical experience in Vicenza. And it will be a restart, because this actually will be the first international jewelry event since lockdown. And the last one I went to was in Bangkok in February. There haven't been any events since that time. And this will be the first one. So it will be a genuine restart for the global jewelry industry, and a great opportunity for voices of the industry to come together and to figure out the ways forward in this new world. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We look forward, hopefully, to seeing you in Vicenza from the 12th to the 14th of September. Thank you very much indeed. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Thank you, Akash. Thank you. It's been fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We're very grateful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ciao, 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 ciao.
Thank you so much, David. Thanks, Paola. Thanks, everyone. Take care.